Greetings, friends. Welcome everyone to this Affirmations for Self Healing. The topic for today's webinar is self control. Today we have Nayaswami Devarshi with us. So, first we are going to do a small prayer and then we'll start with the webinar. Please pray along with me. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Paramhans Yogananda ji, saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Give us the strength, give us your devotion, so that we may become one with thee, even today. Thank you for this opportunity. So, dear friends, I'm going to now do the affirmation in the beginning. Do the reading. This is from the book Affirmations for Self Healing by Swami Kriyananda ji. Today's topic is self control. If a lake is made to feed into too many streams, it will soon become drained. Similarly, if a person's heart energies are fed into countless streamlets of desires, he becomes drained eventually of even the power to feel. Sated with pleasure, he grows dry, blasé, and indifferent to even the greatest wonders. The sensualist imagines that by giving up his pleasures, he would renounce happiness. But in fact, the more one restrains his senses and learns to live in the peace of the inner self, the more he finds himself glowing with happiness, good health, and a radiant sense of freedom and well being. So now we'll do the affirmation. Please repeat along. We'll do it 3 times. First, in a loud voice, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Now, in a whisper, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. This time, let's do it mentally, offering it at the spiritual eye. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Here's the prayer. I crave nothing that the world can give me, Lord. O infinite perfection, make me one with thee. O infinite perfection, make me one with thee. Om. I would request Devarshi ji now to share on this topic.
Thank you, Premdas. This idea of self-control is essential for happiness. I've always found it helpful to look at the faces and the eyes of people who have lived a particular lifestyle or a particular way of life. And you see this, someone who has lived fully in their senses for a full lifetime. You see in their eyes, there's a lack of spark by the time they're older, and there's just a heaviness there. You see that people who have had some self-control and centeredness, there's a lightness there, there's a joy. And you see this in other ways. It's just an interesting practice. You know, if you want to be an aspiring rock musician, for example, and you start looking at, you know, long-standing, long-time rock musicians and their faces, and you think, you know, maybe that's not a way to happiness unless it's done properly. There's some that are an exception. So, but you see this as a way to happiness. And we think that by indulging in the senses, we get short-term happiness, yes, but long-term, it's an illusion. It's like poisoned honey, is the way Yoganandaji put it. And so self-control is essential for the yogi. This is essentially what pranayama is. People wrongly believe that pranayama means breathing exercise, but it actually means control of the life force. And sometimes it's done through breathing exercises, which are called pranayama exercises. But pranayama, as Yoganandaji said, is not a technique, it is a condition. And it is the condition of having control of the life force. And so self-control comes more and more to the yogi when we learn how to control the life force. When we have a practice like Kriya Yoga, which we practice every day and work with the inner energies and learn to control them and learn to create a very powerful magnetism within ourselves. And that powerful magnetism over time, it starts to create such a strong joy and peace and attraction inside that the attractions of the senses tend to just fall away. They become less magnetic and less attractive. But we can't get to self-control simply by suppression. And many yogis do this. I mean, even Kriya yogis I've seen at times who have decided that I'm not having this desire because I'm spiritual, and so this doesn't exist, and they suppress it and they deny its reality rather than working with turning it into something higher towards God. And so we must learn to transmute, transcend, uplift our lower desires into the desire for God. And that essentially is what we're trying to do. And so how we do this is very interesting, because suppression also, you see that this happens especially in the old Kali Yuga monasteries, where the monks and nuns would suppress their desires, and there would be, you know, mental and other issues that would arise from it, because suppressed energy, it starts to get bottled up and becomes unhealthy and tries to find a way out, and it will find a way out, even in unhealthy ways. And so we have to learn to offer our energies up to God, offer our desires to God. And this is a lifelong practice of doing this. But over time, if we do it regularly, we make great progress. Swami Kriyananda talked about this, about how to actually enjoy, because this idea of self-control doesn't mean not to enjoy anything, but to enjoy it with the joy of God. And so if we're eating, you know, ice cream, rather than suppressing it, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm a yogi, I'm not supposed to enjoy the senses. And so, you know, you put salt on your ice cream or some hot sauce to make it taste really bad. And monks used to do this in the old Kali Yuga days. They used to put ashes in their food to make it taste really bad and just get rid of that desire. And that just really ends in a lack of joy in the end. And so what Swamiji taught was to enjoy with the joy of God. He wrote a very beautiful short article. It's about this question. I'm just going to read some of it because his words are too beautiful, the way he expresses it. And the article is called, "Should Yogis Enjoy Beauty?" And Swamiji writes, "I met an old yogi in Puri many years ago. When I say old, I should add that his age was about 132, older, in other words, than most people's concept of old. He was very much a believer in total dispassion. I asked him, "Are you saying that one shouldn't even enjoy a beautiful sunset?" "No," he replied, "everything is Maya. The world in all its aspects ought to be totally spurned." And then Swamiji says, "I know that is one approach to enlightenment. I confess it doesn't appeal to me. I'd say that beauty in a sunset is one manifestation of God. I can't imagine him being wholly pleased by anyone's complete rejection of his handiwork, nor can I imagine him spurning his own creation contemptuously. Such an approach to God seems dry, lifeless, and very unattractive. And in fact, it is. My guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, had a very different approach to spiritual truth. He loved and enjoyed everything, but without attachment, and always as a manifestation of the supreme joy and beauty. It was wonderful to see his positive attitude towards everything. He could be very stern also in the matter of egoic non-attachment to this world, but being with him brought me to wonder whether utter rejection of beauty and delight in God's creative manifestation isn't itself a kind of egotism. Isn't it judgment in a sense to spurn anything? I must say, I like my guru's approach much better. He affirmed life, said yes to it, but then gave every enjoyment back to the supreme source of all joy, Sat Chit Anandam, which is almost the definition of God. And so if we can't find a way to find joy, inspiration, and see God's joy in this world, in this divine Leela, then we're going to have a very difficult time finding joy at all. And it is a very joyless approach. And our own guru's approach, Swami Kriyananda's approach, was this idea of experiencing God as ever new, ever conscious, ever existing divine bliss, Sat Chit Anandam. And if we reject the joy of God in his creation, then we are in a way rejecting God himself. Now, this can be used as a rationalization to indulge in these things. But the fact is that most people don't have the self-control to completely reject and to go beyond it to the highest joy. And so we can use the senses which were given to us by God also, not just to test us, but to appreciate and experience the divine in all. So we can use the senses as a way of learning to transcend and transmute and become really tuned more into God's joy by, and Swami Kriyanandaji gave this example, when you eat some ice cream, rather than rejecting the joy or the pleasure of it, do it with God, do it with Krishna, do it with Divine Mother. We're enjoying ice cream together, and this is a good flavor you gave us, and this is you coming to me through this. And what this does is that it starts to help us reference all joys of this world towards God in a higher way. And it just, in a way, it lifts it higher up the spine towards the spiritual eye, towards the divine. And this is transmutation versus suppression. And it is really, it's the highest way to self-control. And it certainly is the most natural and the most healthy way to practicing and learning self-control. To use all these tools, to use the senses, to use everything in front of us as a way of always turning our minds towards God. Because again, this rejection approach starts to bring the energy down the spine, and it starts to reject God in everything. And instead, we try to see God in everything, in all creation, in all people, in everything that happens. And if we can start practicing that, then the energy starts rising more and more up the spine and starts going more and more towards the joy of God. Even as we live in this world, which we must, as Sri Yukteswarji said, those who are too good for this world are adorning some other. And so we are here for a reason. And let's use this world as a stepping stone towards the divine. And this is the practice that Paramhansa Yogananda gave and his disciple, Swami Kriyanandaji. Premdas will now share on this topic.
Thank you, Devarshi, for sharing on that. Yes. So I'm going to pick this my sharing also on the same thread which Devashiji was sharing about the nature and that incident of Swamiji with the 130-year-old, this thing, the sadhu there, not enjoying nature or enjoying the nature with God is the key. So also today while I was preparing for this webinar, I was reflecting on the first paragraph which I read in the very beginning. So I'm just going to read it again and pick it up from there. If a lake is made to feed into too many streams, it will soon become drained. Similarly, if a person's heart energies are fed into countless streamlets of desires, he becomes drained eventually of even the power to feel. Sated with pleasure, he grows dry, biased, and indifferent to even the greatest wonders. So, recently, Brahmachari Jamal had gone to a seclusion for 3 weeks. So I had the good fortune of going to pick him up from the place of his seclusion. So it was in Himachal. It was we stay like 2 hours away from that place. So early morning I left the house at usual time and I went to pick him up. I'm just telling you, it's always a blessing to meet people right after seclusion because people are more somehow in God's joy and feeling His joy that we can easily sense that we can also experience that joy. That's the best part of picking anyone from seclusion. So this is a good tip for you if you have to pick up someone during seclusion. Say yes to life and say yes to this. So and when I went to pick him up, yeah, I picked him up like he there was a small breakfast we had, but the main thing was I was already feeling his joy. It was contagious. That's the word to use. So we started driving back, and as soon as we started driving back, somehow I was not conscious of even observing that as very close to the house, there's a small bridge, and there was this jacaranda tree with all the blue flowers which had all fall down. A blue velvet had formed. He showed it to me. He just said how beautiful it is. Wow! I said, where was my mind? Not even observe it properly, and I started seeing all these things. He started describing. It felt like he could see so much beauty more in nature from the awareness I was in, and about the birds, the special birds he was seeing during the hikes, and all these mountains and these particular flowers. And wow, it was like so joyful. And then I started reflecting. Okay, so this is his joy which he found within which is helping him to see that beauty and joy everywhere outside. So in the same way, then this became like a good indicator for me. I just started making this one point, this thing in my brain that if I'm able to appreciate the beauty in nature, it's more because I'm able to appreciate the joy, and I feel the joy inside. And if I'm complaining outside and if I'm not able to see any joy, that means it's time that I go within, fill my cup with more God's joy, and then I'll be able to share joy and appreciate joy. So this could be a good indicator of the joy level meter. Whenever we are not able to appreciate the nature around in a walk or something, just know there is something missing in within our own soul. And what we have to do is fill it up with God's joy, maybe deeper meditations that would help us. Okay. And then after this, so self-control also is one of the yamas, and brahmacharya is the word also being used in Patanjali's yamas when he describes it. So it also means flowing with Brahma, like being in tune with God, and it's referred to sexual abstinence, but moreover it's in a broader picture. It refers to anything that we are not too much attached to it, and we are not diving too deep into that sense pleasure that it'll take all our energies outside and we become drained at end. And I would also like to at this point also share some lines from Gita which Lord Krishna is saying here. Lord Krishna says, the man who merely abstains from sense enjoyment may forget them for a time, but the taste of them will linger. The person, however, who beholds the Supreme Spirit loses the taste for anything but the infinite. So again, this particular quote of Krishna telling, when you have the God contact, then you will not need anything. This again bringing back to what Devarshi ji was sharing, that if we are joy affirming, then when we have that joy, anyway, all these sense pleasures loses their power, because the joy of God is so infinite, and the experience of samadhi or the bliss which He can give us, the ever new joy, then all these sense pleasures will leave us back to be. And also in the same, there's a really nice story of George Bernard Shaw, which I would like to share now. He was a playwright. One day he was called for a party, and he went to a party, and in the party there was so much noise and there was so much celebration happening, and he just went to the outskirts of this party and he just sat down there. And it's always a duty of the hostess of the party to make sure everyone is enjoying, and she also, she's doing her job. And George Bernard Shaw is sitting there at the outskirts of the party, little away from all the people. So she's, I think she goes to him, she looks at everyone, and she's making sure everybody is enjoying, and she goes near George Bernard Shaw, and she asks him, are you enjoying yourself? And George Bernard Shaw replied, that's all I'm enjoying. He replied, that's all I'm enjoying. Are you enjoying yourself? That's all I'm enjoying. In this, like Swamiji explains, that we should seek in a similar spirit to discern behind every outer experience the joy of our own being, the enjoyment within. That will really help us to keep in the God's contact, like when you have a good meditation and somehow carrying it throughout the day and sharing with others. And also, I would like to make one more point that Patanjali says that when non-sensuality becomes like confirmed mentally, in the sense like when you're able to um, win over this quality of sensuality, then what we get as a this thing is mental great vigor and mental clarity. So, for example, there is a incident where Swami Kriyananda attributed his phenomenal mental powers to lifelong observance of this principle. And he once, I think, he read the entire volume of Britannica for within a week's time. I think 13 volumes. And the other person, he asked the other person to ask any question, and he was able to, with this extraordinary power, to tell any details. But again, coming back to the, we should always start from where we are right now. So right now, if we are at this level, we need to start at this level. So I think the one of the good steps towards self-control is, first thing is moderation. If you've gone too much in that direction, and then slowly going towards perfect self-control of anything. But more importantly, again, it's the God. Somehow, if we affirm the joy aspect of it, the ever new joy, then all the other things will lose power, like Krishna expressed in the Gita. Now I would request Devashi ji to do the affirmation which we do at the end of this webinar.
So now we will go more deeply into this affirmation on self-control. I'll read the topic again. Self-control. If a lake is made to feed into too many streams, it will soon become drained. Similarly, if a person's heart energies are fed into countless streamlets of desires, he becomes drained, eventually, of even the power to feel. Sated with pleasure, he grows dry, blasé, and indifferent to even the greatest wonders. The sensualist imagines that by giving up his pleasures, he would renounce happiness. But in fact, the more one restrains his senses and learns to live in the peace of the inner self, the more he finds himself glowing with happiness, good health, and a radiant sense of freedom and well-being. So we'll do this affirmation now a number of times. First, repeat after me, doing it very loudly, just bringing it very strongly into the conscious mind. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Still loudly into the conscious mind, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Now more quietly and trying to absorb the meaning of the words. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Again, tuning into the meaning, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And now a whisper starting to take it into the subconscious mind within. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Again, whispering, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And now mentally taking it deeper into the subconscious. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And again, mentally only, but with rising aspiration, offering it up, feeling it rising up to the superconscious at the point between the eyebrows. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Again, rising up to the superconscious. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And once more, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And let's feel it within, the power of those words, the completion within ourselves. And let's close now, mentally tuning in and mentally hearing and feeling this prayer. I crave nothing that the world can give me, Lord. O infinite perfection, make me one with Thee. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you for joining us.